Welcome to Jamf Migrate, Device Migration Without Erasing. Thank you all for joining today. I am really excited to show you some cool stuff and offer a fantastic reason to move your devices over to Jamf. My name is Matthew Phillips. I am a senior consulting engineer here at Jamf, and my team specializes in implementation of custom solutions. I am also the lead developer of the Jamf Migrate app for iOS. On the agenda today, we are going to go over how and where Jamf uses the term migrate for its different solutions. Then we'll talk broadly about how anyone can migrate devices on their own and the challenges with doing that. You'll learn about the options and benefits of the Jamf Migrate service. Later, we will cover why Jamf migrations are so successful and get praised by our customers. And I will, of course, have demos of the Migrate software in use, and we'll leave time at the end for questions and answers. With that, let's get right to it. Migrate. Migrations. Naming things is hard, and I'm going to start this presentation by apologizing. I'm going to use the word migrate and derivatives of a lot. So get a jar ready and fill it every time I say it, but we can't go through this without using the word a ton. It's because migrate is a word that gets thrown around a bunch in the fast-moving and always changing world of technology. It's a term that has many definitions, but going over them all here would probably be a waste of time. I will, however, take this time to cover the Jamf-specific uses of the term and how they apply to you, your devices, and most importantly, this webinar. First up, we have Jamf Migrator. This is a tool that was built by Jamf consulting engineers to facilitate specific, effective, and repeatable moves of data from one Jamf server to another using the API. This includes settings, policies, groups, and configuration profiles, just to name a few. We love using this tool to move changes from a UAT or test server into production to eliminate human error. Migrator has nothing to do with migrating devices from a third-party MDM, but I wanted to take the time to say just how useful of a tool this is. You can go get a copy yourself on Jamf Marketplace or check out the project on GitHub. Second, we have Jamf migrations from on-prem to the cloud. Admittedly, less and less common these days as most Jamf customers are already cloud first, but this is still a very important offering for some of our longtime customers. It is a service wherein Jamf upgrades and moves the Jamf instance that might be living on a real server somewhere up into the Jamf cloud architecture. Third and fourth, we have, and also most importantly, the topic of this session is Jamf Migrate for Mac and for iOS. An all-inclusive engagement, it's an app and a service that facilitates moving your Apple devices away from their current MDM server. Migrate enables your users to easily and reliably move device management over to Jamf. It supports every major MDM vendor as a source, and the destinations can be either Jamf Pro or Jamf School. Migrating devices from one MDM to another isn't impossible, but it also isn't enjoyable or easy. Historically, there have been two ways to facilitate moving devices from your old MDM over to Jamf. The most commonly known DIY method is to switch the devices up in Apple's School Manager or Business Manager. Once they have been redirected in Apple's portal to point to your new Jamf server, simply send out the device wipe command from your current MDM, ADE takes over, and the rest is history. But then again, so is your user's data. That's gone too. So this isn't everyone's first choice for migrations. Erase all contents and settings is often distasteful in most real-world use cases, especially when you have one-to-one devices. This migration method has a few other requirements that might not be available to you. Automated device enrollment isn't possible with all devices, or even available in all countries. A brief sidebar, if I may, regarding the Apple Manager portal. Rest assured that simply changing the MDM server that your devices point to for automated device enrollment is safe. Nothing happens to the devices that are already out in the world and in use. This change is invisible to the end user. Flipping MDM servers in ABM or ASM doesn't take effect or indeed matter at all unless the device is erased and run through Setup Assistant. Okay, end sidebar. So then what's the problem with erasing devices? Haven't you heard of return to service, I hear you saying? It's like a magic wipe option with pre-baked Wi-Fi, made by Apple, you say. Well, it is cool. However, not everyone has their devices set up for ADE. But the real struggle is how to handle kicking off the device wipe. Who starts it? And when? Where are the users when it happens? Usually that is something that can only be done from the MDM console by an IT administrator. So you have to have a ticket or a phone call or be near the person when you're getting ready to wipe it. Also, what happens to those users' data? Because restoring from a device backup will include instructions to the previous MDM, and that can't be used for this kind of device migration. Then, how can you migrate devices whilst keeping user data intact? Here comes the second DIY method. We call it User-Initiated Enrollment, or UIE. The steps are roughly this. Remove the device from MDM control. This is often called retire or enterprise wipe by other vendors. Again, this is something that usually needs to be done from the IT admin console. Most MDMs can protect the user from removing management themselves for obvious reasons. Enterprise wipe or unenrolling from the old MDM should leave the data on the device, but it does in fact remove all the configuration profiles. Then, the user needs to follow a decidedly non-zero number of steps to get enrolled into Jamf. By following some manner of user enrollment, either username and password or SSO, the process isn't terrible, but it's full of ways to go wrong, and you can't force them to do it. And this is where Jamf Migrate picks up the slack. This solution supports both wiping and non-wiping migrations. So both of those two DIY methods we talked about are made better when using Jamf Migrate. Now that you know how to go your own way using what you already have in your arsenal, perhaps you're thinking, how hard can it be? Well, we've only scratched the surface. There are still plenty of pitfalls to uncover with these workflows as you dig into the details. For instance, what if the device is on a managed Wi-Fi network or CERT-based Wi-Fi? Or more commonly, what if the users are just really, really bad at following directions? Because that's like a fact of the universe. Jamf Migrate was written to simplify and solidify the process. The killer app to migrate is we put the end user in charge of their migration. The user picks a time that's best for them to begin the migration. No IT ticket or interaction needed from the admin. Users launch the Jamf Migrate app, follow the on-screen prompts, and enroll into Jamf themselves. Crucially, without losing their data or productivity. We have many options when configuring a migration for your specific environment and use case. This is the key that makes Jamf Migrate so successful. The power is in its flexibility. The iOS app is fully customizable. The on-screen text, colors, buttons, logo, and prompts. Also, how the app actually behaves is configurable. We can add or remove steps to the migration as needed. We have very deliberately kept support for iOS versions as far back as 14, because not everyone is always on the latest OS. Sometimes that's one of the major reasons you're looking to switch. Maybe the other guys might not be so great at enforcing software updates or reporting. And that might mean without iOS 17 or greater, an RTS-based migration's not really going to help you. As for running through the process, which I will show you in just a bit, let's talk about time. Migrate is fast. Start to finish, a user can migrate their device in less than 2 minutes. The entire device migration can be done in as little as 8 taps on the glass. This, of course, could be more if you choose to add steps like authentication, which, by the way, is optional. More on that later. But right now, I want to get into the demo. So now, the moment you've all been waiting for, let me show you the entire process here on this iPad. Mind you, this is just one of the versions of what a migration could look like. We call this the auto-magical version. In that, we are not wiping the device or losing any apps and data, and enrollment is done with a reusable profile. For this demo, we're first going to start by hopping into the settings to show that the device is enrolled in MDM and supervised. This is not part of the migration. I'm just showing you the before state of the iPad. We deploy the app using your current MDM, in this case Microsoft. This could be fetched via App Catalog or forced down to the device. When it appears, the user launches the app when they're good and ready. And when it launches, Migrate checks in with a server to validate the device is eligible for migration. There are prerequisite checks made, and then the user taps Begin. At this point, our secure server performs the API command to remove MDM. Next, we put the user into a holding pattern while the APNS command takes effect. These next steps are easy enough, but we list them here on the screen while they wait. Once ready, the user taps Enroll, and we take them to a hosted config profile used for automatic enrollment. Tap Allow, then Close. Now we've got this big blue button. Tap that, open Jamf Migrate, and this part's slick. We take them directly to the presented profile page. Tap Install. At this point, we're enrolling the device into Jamf. Tap one more time and Trust, and then after it's done, tap Done. At this point, the device is managed and supervised in Jamf Pro. We now begin adopting management of other apps and installing self-service. One indication that the migration is done, the user can return to the Migrate app. Here they'll be greeted with a congratulations page and some endorphin-generating confetti. They can quit this app, and at this point, launch self-service to configure it and have a look at all the new shiny Jamf apps they have access to. This step is optional, but I went ahead and hopped in here just to show that we have access to the catalog and all the apps that Jamf has to offer. It was fast, but you may have noticed that we removed the company portal app from the previous MDM, as we won't be needing it. Also, within the next 24 hours, we will remove the Jamf Migrate app, as that's no longer needed either. For the demo, I pushed that automation step forward so we wouldn't have to wait. I wanted to be able to show you the app removing automatically after all the dust had settled. And that was Jamf Migrate for iOS. Now, let's take a look at Migrate for macOS. It has many of the features like iOS and so much more. The customizability and branding options are at the core of Migrate. Labels and on-screen prompts can also be modified. We also show the user and serial info on screen to help validate device data and logging. Migrate allows for Mac enrollment without wiping using ADE or standard user-initiated enrollment. Migrate for Mac has deferral options built in that allow the user to pick the best time that's right for them to start the migration. By default, we give them 3 chances to defer before the migration is forced upon them, and the window will sit there until they start the process. This, of course, can also be customized. We can enable File Vault and Jamf Connect as part of the migration. And since this software is running on the Mac as admin, we can add scripted steps to do just about anything you want. And now, let's check out that demo. Migrate can be launched automatically or by the user. It runs checks to determine eligibility and device state. The user is given clear messaging and optional deferral times. Once they are ready to go, they click OK, and we kick off the migration. This process removes the old MDM profile and starts installing the Jamf MDM. If available, we leverage ADE to enroll. If not, Migrate will default to using regular user-initiated enrollment. Here, we brief the user on what to expect. This is the same prompt that they would see the remote management screen during zero-touch enrollment, with a password prompt. And here you see the Apple remote management enrollment page. And the user is prompted for their password, which they will type in. And enrollment into Jamf Pro begins. Once enrollment is complete, they leave the Setup Assistant, and we return to the Jamf Migrate app. Now we start another optional step of renewing the recovery key. If File Vault is enabled, we'll need to reissue the key and escrow that new recovery key with Jamf. Because of the security of this process, we do require their password to accomplish this step. Once the key is reissued and escrowed to Jamf, the migration is done. We have time for any final post-processing script steps, and a cleanup step as well, where we remove all of the agents and software that was used for the migration. Migrate has another feature we've not talked about, and that is reporting. We generate smart groups and reports that can monitor the process and success of the devices as they migrate into Jamf. It may not always be obvious if the devices have left your old MDM server. Some actually delete them from the database when they remove MDM. But in Jamf Pro, you can watch your numbers grow as your migration progresses along. And you can even identify failures or problematic migrations and reach out to those users directly. Let's take a look at some of the app options in depth. Some of these might be fairly self-explanatory, but all have great value. There is an adjustable countdown timer before the user is allowed to proceed with enrollment. This is needed as not all MDMs move at the same speed, so we don't let the user continue until the profile has been removed. And it's best to give them an idea of how long to wait over an indeterminate spinner where they might think the app is frozen or just reveal that they have zero patience. We have a built-in help page with custom text blocks. If your users need more info or have questions about the process, you can turn on links to IT web resources, enable a mail to link, which uses their default mail app to send you an email, as well as a call IT button if phone support is preferred. As discussed before, Migrate can be used to erase the devices. The user has a guided experience similar to what you've seen already, but the progress bar waits for the device wipe command, and there are no next steps inside the app. The device reboots, and then ADE can take over from there. And keep in mind, erase mode doesn't have to be used for your entire fleet. A subset of your devices can be set up to do a wiping workflow, while the rest of your devices can preserve user data. Again, Migrate is highly flexible. A feature that goes hand in hand with erase device mode is the battery level checker. You configure the minimum required battery % level, and the user is prompted to plug in their device if it's too low, or asked to try again later with a higher state of charge. This is especially valuable when doing a wiping workflow because you don't want the device running out of battery while it's busy erasing its drive. The optional user login authentication step I've mentioned before, and we'll go into a little bit more detail later. Custom wording is handy to use terminology specific to your users and your environment, dialog messages that they will understand, or you can take the opportunity to be a little cheeky and have fun with some of the prompts. Alongside custom wording is localization. If your devices span many countries or regions, the app is able to be displayed in whatever language the user has selected as a default, or it can display whatever specific languages you've configured the app to support. Branded logo. This is a powerful trust-building step. By adding a custom logo that matches your brand, it helps put the user's mind at ease that they are doing something officially supported by IT. They don't even need to know that this is a Jamf migration app. They just need to know that it's their migration app. This reminds me, we do occasionally have customers that are very brand focused and require things like a bespoke app icon or a legal EULA prompt or even a UI that matches their in-house app. And Jamf does offer a premium white glove migration that can include a special build of the app for when your needs exceed the standard offering of Jamf Migrate. We also have SSID steering. If your devices are on a managed network or CERT-based Wi-Fi, we can warn the user that they are on the wrong network or simply move the device to the preferred SSID specific to the migration before they are allowed to begin. However, something to think about is the migration and the Jamf server both are in the cloud, so the device migration is fully compatible with being done remotely or being done from the user's home. Migrate uses any open Wi-Fi and can even fall back onto the cellular connection if available. Cellular auto detect is great because any of the concerns around Wi-Fi not working can be ignored, as the app will skip any Wi-Fi steering or SSID checks if the device has an active data plan. Basically, we don't bother the user with prompts if we know it's not going to be an issue. And that rounds out some of the ever-growing feature list of Jamf Migrate. It's worth noting that every one of these features mentioned has been made possible because a customer migration needed it. We worked with that customer to develop and test the feature, then implemented it, and now everyone can benefit from these advancements. Now, we've talked about authentication, and logging in with a username and password is optional in Migrate. We strive to remove as many steps as possible. If the user identity is still needed, we can infer it from the previous MDM's database. One of the most important reasons for a non-wiping migration is user identity on your one-to-one devices. We do this in several ways. If you trust the data in your current MDM and want to move the users assigned to each device over into Jamf, we can do that by simply pre-filling the database. When a given device serial number shows up, we know it's already assigned to the user Kyle, and we don't need to prompt the user to authenticate for enrollment. However, if more commonly found, the data in your old MDM is inaccurate and a bit of a mess, we don't want to trust that data. Maybe Kyle's device isn't actually in the hands Kyle. Maybe that serial number is being used by Morgan or Lucy. We just don't know. Then with Jamf Migrate, we can turn on enrollment authentication as part of the migration. Now, this can be local credentials, or it can be part of your IDP integration. And the best part is, if the device already has an active session with SAML, then the auth is skipped entirely and the user identity is passed directly to Jamf. It's really slick. This is a major differentiator from any other MDM vendor that claims they offer device migration. Jamf Migrate is a full service, not just a script or a PDF of instructions. You get an app, yes, but most importantly, you are not on your own. Jamf is with you every step of the way. After our engineers help you discover if Jamf Migrate is right for you, we kick off the services engagement. This includes all the planning and decision-making around the possible options we've shown here, creating a unique migration that will be a success for both IT and the device users. Whether you plan on migrating Macs, iOS, or a bit of both, the key to success here is the complete package that is Jamf Migrate. This is all made possible by a migration server that is provisioned in the cloud specifically for you. I've mentioned the API calls made during the migration, and it's important to note that the end user devices are never exposed to any API credentials or tokens. Our app talks directly to the secure migration server, and it communicates with your old MDM and the new Jamf server. We can't overlook the true heroes of a Jamf device migration, which is our professional services team. We really wouldn't be here without them. They're years of successful third-party MDM migrations moving several 100,000 devices. We have proven out one consistent fact. The most successful migrations are a direct result of solid planning and testing leading up to the migration. Jamf PS engineers are aware of the nuances and common pitfalls moving device trust. They can help you navigate your current MDM when configuring the settings and deploying the app. Which brings me to something that I'm sure you're eager to know. Does Migrate work with my MDM? And well, the answer is yes. We've been able to do migrations from every major MDM brand that we have encountered. Now, that statement comes with an asterisk because not all MDMs are created equal. Some of the features and options you've been shown here might not be supported by your current MDM. We don't want to get into a list and a chart that'll immediately become out of date here in this webinar, but I can say we do have that list posted online, or just reach out to your contact at Jamf and ask for details about using Jamf Migrate with your MDM today. And that concludes the Jamf Migrate webinar, Device Migration Without Erasing.